Hey guys, Ben here and welcome back to another video. Today we're going to be talking about the latest DC news coming from James Gunn. He has commented on cameos in the DCU and what's going to be going on in those future films. So if you do go on to enjoy the video, please be sure to leave a like and a comment and subscribe and turn on notifications so you don't miss any future DCTV videos later this year. Okay guys, we got 3 separate topics to talk about today, all DCU related. And we got one big casting for Superman Legacy. Also, we have a writer on board one of the future DCU projects. But the first main topic is obviously our focus of this video, and that is all to do with DCU Cameos and what James Gunn has actually said about them, which I think is really interesting because we know that James Gunn has been involved in the latest DCU films, and obviously he was still in charge of DC Studios, or he was just in charge at the point when they released the Flash film. And we know the Flash film was filled with cameos. They were all CGI cameos. It was like a little bit controversial because Grant Gustin wasn't in it. We did a video about that yesterday. Go check that out if you haven't watched it. But also the fact that they just CGI'd them and included them for the sake of it. Like, there was no story reason to actually involve those characters. I think they could have chose better, and I think story-wise it would have made more sense to have, you know, Grant Gustin's Flash show up and some people more related to the Flash directly. But let's go through James Gunn's comments about cameos in the future of the DCU. So he was responding on Threads to a post from comicbookmovie.com titled "Superman Legacy Director James Gunn Defends Reboot's Large Cast and Says Superheroes Aren't Just Cameos." So he replied to this. He said, "The whole point was it's not a large film. I mean, not in terms of cast. It's normal for single protagonist films to have other characters, much more unusual for them not to." And then another fan replied, "Finally, someone who treats characters more than just having character appear on screen for 10 seconds to mark a checkbox." And then James Gunn replied to that saying, and I can't say the words because I think YouTube would demonetize me, but I call that cameo PORN. And it has been one of the worst elements of recent superhero films. If a character is in the film, they have to have a reason to be there story-wise. So I don't know about you guys, but I feel like he's calling out the Flash film, because the Flash film is the biggest example of this recently, especially to do with DC. Obviously Marvel has previously done it. We saw it with the recent Spider-Man film. You had Tobey Maguire show up, you had Andrew Garfield show up, but those weren't just 10-second cameos. They were actually a lot bigger, so I guess that's a little bit different. It's more like, I guess, in Spider-Verse when like maybe Donald Glover showed up, that was like 10 seconds or something maximum. So I guess that's your Marvel comparison, but your DC comparison is what happened in the Flash, because you had all these different versions of Batman, Superman, like an unnamed, unrecognizable Flash in the multiverse. And now James Gunn is actually calling out that. And actually he replied to someone else. He says, "I don't mind actual cameos if it's a glimpse or a moment, an Easter egg, but what bothers me is when they mangle an elegant story by shoehorning characters in. They aren't there because the story calls for it, but for some other reason." And I think this is true. Like, most cameos are there, especially in terms of, you know, superhero films, just to have some sort of fan service. And a lot of the time there's no actual reason to show so much of an insight into, you know, these specific cameos. And so I think if the story calls for it, there is a reason to have these cameos, and what James Gunn is saying makes a lot of sense in my opinion. And I think what we can take away from these comments about him actually coming out publicly and saying this is that in the DCU, I believe all the cameos that happen is going to be more of like an Easter egg rather than, or I think it's more likely that if someone cameos in a film, it's going to be for an actual part to play in the story, is going to be more significant than just someone flashing up on screen for a few minutes or like a couple of seconds. And that's because that's the way that James Gunn sees things, and obviously he's in control along with Peter Safran in terms of what's going on in the DCU. So I think it's very eye-opening that he's actually come out and said this, because it gives a little bit of a better insight into the way that he's actually thinking. And I know some people are kind of against James Gunn being so active online and replying to so many people, but I really like it actually that we kind of get, you know, a good glimpse into what we have to look forward to in the future. So probably don't expect many major cameos. There will probably be bigger roles and they'll have a bigger part to play in the story if you see cameos in, say, Superman Legacy or any other future DCU project. So if you're looking for, say, like a Grant Gustin cameo or any kind of past DC cameo, they would have to play a bigger role, and I think they would have to introduce the multiverse or time travel, and we probably spend more time with those characters, which is obviously a good thing for us because, you know, that gives us a lot to look forward to, because we could see some people come in and play bigger roles, kind of like in the Arrowverse how we had, you know, these old actors come in who have played past DC characters, but also some actual DC characters that kind of appeared and then continued with their past character. Obviously we saw that in The Flash most prominently with Michael Keaton, like he was playing the same version as Batman, but obviously in the Flashpoint timeline. But that pretty much does it for that main topic. Let's move on to the next topic. This is to do with Sean Gunn. That is James Gunn's brother. He has been cast in James Gunn and Peter Safran's DCU to play DC villain Maxwell Lord. Now, some people have been calling James Gunn out, just saying this is nepotism by always casting him in, you know, all of his projects, but it makes a lot of sense. Like, I was expecting him to appear, I expect Dave Bautista to appear, I expect, you know, some of his friends to appear who are good actors themselves. That's nothing to take away from them, but I understand people's complaints that he's not always casting brand new people. I guess it's different when you continuously cast your brother. Like most great directors, they actually have the actors that they go back to. So if you look at Quentin Tarantino's films, Leonardo DiCaprio is always in them. Like, he's in a lot of films. He goes back to the same people, and same thing goes for a lot of other big directors and actors. And so, yeah, the news is Sean Gunn is going to be playing the DC character who was most recently seen in live action in Wonder Woman 1984. He was played by Pedro Pascal. This is a Superman villain. Maxwell Lord was also a prominent villain in Supergirl Season 1. That was the previous live action iteration that we had, but obviously Wonder Woman was more recent. He was kind of a little bit of a miss in that film just because not many people liked Wonder Woman 1984, but I enjoyed the film overall. I like the character of Maxwell Lord. I think he is a good villain. He is someone who is ingrained in Superman Legacy, so it just makes sense that he's in this new Superman film. And according to Deadline sources, the plan is for Maxwell Lord to be seated in the background of James Gunn's Superman Legacy, laying the path for him to show up elsewhere down the line. So it's not going to be just a cameo, he's going to be there. Probably there's bits and pieces around the film that's going to basically tease Maxwell Lord becoming a bigger thing. Also, I forgot to mention we did have a version of him in Superman Lois, which was another recent thing back in season 1 of Superman Lois. But basically, Maxwell Lord, if you guys don't know him, in the comics he is a businessman and a scheming villain. He's not always been like 100% bad, but basically what he operates in is this kind of shady line, and he does bad stuff at the end of the day, and he is ingrained with Superman. He has been in Superman related comics for a very long time. He actually first appeared in a Justice League comic back in 1987. He doesn't have any superpowers or anything. He is just, you know, a scheming villain, kind of like Lex Luthor, but in a different way. And so, yeah, James Gunn setting this up for the future of the DCU. You can expect him in at least one film or a TV show. I presume in Superman Legacy, like the report is saying, it's not going to be anything too crazy. But let's move on to our final topic of today's video. This is coming from comicbookmovie.com. Again, link to all of these sources will be in the description below. So DC Studios has hired a screenwriter for the Authority film, according to James Gunn. So this is the report from them. The Authority is a film that's coming in the DCU. We know that it's going to be set up in Superman Legacy like a lot of these other things. The reason that we know about them actually having a writer is James Gunn replied to a comment on social media saying the Authority aren't being cast, but we've had a writer for a long time. So that is the news. And again, this comes from James Gunn commenting online. So it seems this project is quite important for James Gunn, considering that they've had a writer for a long time, presumably close to when they were starting DC Studios. But here he is again debunking that they're not casting anyone, especially because the screenplay hasn't been finished and it's not ready to get started. That's something that he's been going on about, because there's been lots of rumors about different castings in the DCU for projects that aren't even finished yet. But that pretty much does it for this video, guys. Thank you guys so much for watching. Hopefully you enjoyed the video. If you did, please be sure to leave a like and a comment. It would really help this video get out there. Also subscribe and turn on notifications so you don't miss any future videos around here. You can go check out my latest videos, they're all up on the channel. But for now, click on the top right corner of the screen to watch my latest video, and I'll catch you guys later. Goodbye.
I see red.